Okay, so this is our Empathy Cafe on how might we nurture a culture of empathy in the family. So just to, oh, there's Victoria. Oh, great.
There's a girl trying to get in last week here from Africa, and she actually, you said she was trying to get in, and you weren't going to let whoever it was in. So
Oh, there was somebody. Hi, Victoria. There was someone. Yeah. So if they come late, some.
it was herself, yeah.
Oh.
She was going to come tonight, but I don't see her. She hasn't come yet anyway, so she probably won't come now.
Well, people might pop in. So I was just saying this is our Empathy Cafe on why and how might we nurture a culture of empathy in our families. And so maybe we can just get started with a quick check-in. How's everyone doing? Your name and how you're doing. I think most everybody here knows each other. But for the camera, for the recording, I'm Edwin Rutch from the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy, and I'm pretty excited about this topic. I love this topic, and I think it's an important topic, so I'm thrilled to be here. Bill, do you want to?
Sure. Bill Filler. I've been working with Edwin for about 3 years in the San Francisco Bay Area as well. And I like this subject because I think that the family is a microcosm for our community as a whole. And so if you establish healthy things in the family, I think that would then spread empathy wider. Thanks.
Great. Maureen?
Yes, I'm Maureen from Ireland, and I got involved in these circles through the Extinction Rebellion. And I suppose Extinction Rebellion is also a community working for the care of the earth.
Great. Pavel?
So I'm Pavel, and I'm in Ireland at the moment. I'm particularly excited about the topic as well, as I think that everything starts from the family and it goes outward. So that's the root where it all begins.
Thanks. Victoria?
Hi, this is Victoria from Mexico, and I'm excited too about this topic. I like it.
Good. So let me just put in a link here for notes. I created this Google Doc. I'm actually going to share it on the screen as well, just to review it. So this is a shared Google Doc that you can write in. I put the link in, and it's, our topic was how might we nurture a culture of empathy? And I added why. So, and these are some notes. I create some headings. There's the why is nurturing a culture of empathy in the family important? And it was greater, well-being, and then greater societal well-being. This is what Bill talked about, family as a microcosm in society. So we can keep adding, to this list here. The how might we nurture it? And we have some ideas here. We can share stories, and I jotted down the stories. Victoria told a very nice story about her father last time, so just made a note about that. Developing a toolkit and a training module for this, because we have our empathy circle facilitator training. I really think that this could be a module within that. And so there's just various topics here. There's a to-do list, try to hold a empathy circle in your family and report back on how it went next week. Create a training module, which is what I just mentioned. Last time I talked about creating the Empathy Nanny Show in response to the UK Super Nanny Show. And if you scroll down, you can take any notes here, while we're talking. And then later you can sort it under one of these headings, or even add another heading, so we can slowly, sort of flesh out the sort of a report here that we can share with others. So I'm going to stop sharing that. It might be a little hard if you have a cell phone or whatever, or a small screen. It's a bit hard to watch and write, but do the best you can. I have two big 24-inch screens here, so I have a lot of room for writing. So I think we could just get started. If Whoever would like to start, just everybody knows how to take part in the empathy circle. If anybody's watching this, you can go to empathycircle.com for the instructions. And yeah, we can just get started and take it away. I've been talking a lot, so I'll be quiet and let someone else start. And somebody want to take time? Forgot. Anybody have Bill? Thanks.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So we're
I'll
going for 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so last time
Who are you speaking to?
Oh, sorry. Can I speak to you, Edwin?
Okay. Listening.
Okay. So, last time I was sharing my experiences about family in this culture of empathy. And well, this time I would like to share something about the topic was also about romantic relationships, right? So, talking about relationships, I'm not sure how is that this starts, like this empathy, but I just can say that awareness and conscious is needed. Awareness and conscious about there's a different way to communicate. I'll stop there.
Okay, so before you had talked about empathy in your family, but you're wanting to talk now about about romantic relationships, and you think that romantic relationship really starts with awareness, like can you, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Mm, awareness and consciousness about there's a different way to communicate, that there is a different way of expressing feelings, emotions, that there is a different way to listen to each other. It seems that we only knew the way that we were taught in our families, which was not the best one, I would say.
Yeah, so it's really, you want to have a different way of having awareness and consciousness. And in our families, we were taught a certain way of relating, and this is a new way of relating in your kind of romantic relationships.
Yes, I personally didn't know about it like in my first relationships. So I always had the feeling of being not heard or not valued. And I think that the first problem it was that I didn't hear myself and I didn't value myself. I'll stop there.
Yeah, so like I'm hearing in your first relationships, you didn't feel really heard, and you didn't feel like you could hear yourself in the relationship, and you weren't really valued.
Yeah, exactly. I think that it all started, I can say, with empathy with myself, but I didn't know how to do it until I started to practice empathy with others. And I was like, oh, I can also to have this practice, but with myself to be able to do it with others. It's like a circle, myself and others.
Yeah, so you didn't really know how to be heard, but then when you started hearing others, you saw that sort of this it's a relationship of mutual listening and mutual hearing. Then you actually get to hear yourself as well through this mutuality.
Mhm. Yes. So I think that's all for the first idea.
Yeah,
Then
okay.
I won't have nothing to share later.
So that's just a start then. Okay, then Pavel, I'll speak to you.
Happy to listen.
Yeah, there's this active listening or empathic listening was started by Carl Rogers, who used it within a therapeutic relationship. Just the therapist listening to the client, but then it's kind of spread to into a lot of different areas. So just want to talk about that a little bit.
So the whole empathic movement and began with Carl Rogers, where he used it in his sessions, and he used to reflect on the client's thoughts and feelings. and then it expanded.
And so a lot of people, took this and then sort of built on it. And there's a couple that started something called Imago Relationships. And they actually used mutual empathic listening for romantic relationships. So it did kind of has, sort of this toolkit for romantic, relationships. It was started developed. And it's relational. It's not like, a client therapist. It's just people in a relationship can use these tools and practices.
So what I'm hearing is that, like, in therapy session, it's only one-sided, but in couples, it can be mutual. So the both sides use it to build on their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And this couple, Mogo or something.
They call it Imago. I can't remember the name of the people that started it, but I could look it up. Imago Relationships. It's some couple, who were like therapists and learned from Carl Rogers, and then they kind of took it to the next step. And then, so and they did create some videos and explanation, for how to do it in romantic relationships.
They created the toolkit for how to use this empathic listening in relationships.
Yeah. And another thing is this practice was taken up by marriage family therapists. So these are, therapists who deal with families in crisis. And then they basically are like mediators. They bring the husband, wife, or, whatever, the relationship together, and they help them listen to each other using kind of empathic listening. So there is a whole, it's out there. So I guess I'm just trying to give a context here for some resources for this as a foundation.
So the therapists noticed how valuable this toolkit is, and they began incorporating it in their practice and began acting as mediators for couples to establish better communication.
Yeah, and that's the field is called marriage family therapy. So there's a whole, therapeutic field around that. So what we're trying to do is really, how do we have kind of expand it and deepen this in the family? So I think the whole, dealing with romantic relationships is, from the beginning, right? Starting a relationship with mutual empathic listening, I think, is a really good foundation.
The question is how we can take this thing that it's already existing in the mutual relational therapy and incorporate it in the family.
Yeah, and in romantic
do we make it mutual?
relationships. Yeah. So when you start a relationship, right, it's probably good at the very beginning to say, hey, can we have let's have an agreement that this is going to be an empathic relationship, which means that we're going to get heard, sort of an agreement that if we have a conflict, that we're going to bring it into an empathy circle. We're going to have periodic empathy circles, sort of, just sort of practice. Yeah.
Basically, we want to incorporate as much of these practices in our relationships. How we can do that to engage the other person.
Yeah, I feel fully heard. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So, Bill, would you listen to me, please?
Sure.
I read a book recently. It was called The House That Love Builds. Mm-hmm. And it had interesting theme that the relationship, it's a third entity that is being created, let's say, by two people. And the relationship, it's what connects you. So with your actions, you either strengthen that relationship, you either nurture it or you weaken it. And it's all about the relationship. It's not between the two people. It is the relationship that's in between.
So you read a book called The House That Love Built, and it really sees, I mean, there's one individual and another individual, but there's actually a third entity, which is the relationship itself. And so it addresses that relationship, and people by their actions can either weaken that relationship or strengthen it.
Yes. So you're not, let's say, hurting or helping the other person directly. It's indirectly.
Mm-hmm.
First, it goes to the relationship, and then it's being transferred to the person. And I think that the whole empathic toolkit, it's not just empathic listening, it's a whole variety of actions. It's one of the best ways to build that relationship, to nurture it. The relationship, it's like a small child that needs nurturing, let's say, every day. And by offering that gift of empathy to your partner, you're nurturing that relationship.
So one of the things one has to understand in the model is that when you are communicating directly with your partner, it's not exactly how you envision it. They see it through the filter of the relationship. And so therefore, you have to account for that and be aware of that, how that would be perceived, in order to understand how you might nurture it. And the metaphor you use is like a little child, that a relationship needs to be nurtured.
And a question that I often ask myself is not what can I do for this person, but what can I do to nurture the relationship? And once I nurture the relationship, it will have effect on the person.
Okay, so one of the things that is changed is not what I want to do directly to or for with this person, but what do I want to do for the relationship, which then creates a situation where you're part of the relationship, so you're getting some of the benefits. It's not like a transactional relationship, it's like a sharing relationship, and then both people benefit.
Yes. And this is also, to me, from personal experience, the best way to get to know someone on a much deeper level. It allows the whole process of reflective listening, empathic listening, as it allows the person to open up, and the more the person opens up and the more trust you establish between each other, the better bond that it's being created between the two of you.
Okay, so I missed something from the last time, which is saying that there are a lot more tools rather than just reflective listening that one brings to a relationship. So there are other things to do. And then when you do that, then good things happen. I know I kind of like over summarized there. So
it's absolutely fine. I feel fully heard, Bill. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Maureen, would you listen to me?
Yes, Bill, you're welcome.
Well, so this is a story. I love comedy. And so this is the longest time that I've incubated a joke, and it has to do with this subject. So I'll stop there.
So you love comedy.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, you have incubated this joke.
Right. Yeah. So when I was a young man, and I was, I'd gone through various relationships, I realized how much more important conversational intercourse is rather than sexual intercourse. What I realized is that in a relationship, 99% is conversational intercourse, and 1% is sexual intercourse, which is important, but you most of the time you're trying to communicate. And I'll stop there.
And so when you were a young man, having gone through many relationships, you certainly began to realize that conversational intercourse is more important than sexual intercourse.
Right.
Even though sexual intercourse has its place, but it is not. It is not the conversational communication is more important.
Yeah. And I didn't have too many relationships. First of all, I have my standards, and second of all, I'm not that attractive, so I just didn't. And I had a few, so I'll stop there.
So you didn't have too many relationships. After all, you're not very attractive. And yes.
Yeah. So when my son was born, I thought that was the greatest gift I could give to him. When he became an adolescent and he started to date, I would say, look, son, 99% of the intercourse you're going to have in this relationship will be conversational, not sexual. And then he would sort of like let it sink in, and this would be the greatest thing that a father could ever give his son. I'll stop there.
So then when your son came along, you realized as he grew into adolescence, you were quite happy, you were very happy to be able to tell him that conversational communication is 99%.
Right. So then the day came. I was incubating this joke for like 14, 15 years, and the day came, or this wisdom and joke. And I went into my son and I told him that. I said, son, I know you're dating now, so just 99% of the intercourse you'll have is conversational, 1% is sexual. So whoever you pick someone who will listen to you and be a friend. And I'll stop there.
So then the day came when you were able to tell your joke. And that was in speaking to your son, again, stressing that 99%, he was dating, he began dating.
Right.
And you went into his room and you were again stressing 99%, pick someone who will listen. Because 99% of the time is going to be conversation. And 1%, I suppose, is sexual. Yes,
right. Okay. And so he looked at me and I thought, okay, I did it. And he looked at me and he says, Dad, you're weird. Get out of my room.
So you thought, well, great, I did it. And then the man said, Dad, get out of my room. You're weird.
Yeah. Thank you. I feel fully heard.
Yes. I speak to Victoria, if I may. Yes, after that joke, it's good. Victoria, let me see what else. I was kind of fascinated by what Pavel was saying when he was talking about the house that love built and the communication between two people, I would suppose. What he was touching on was it's the space in between, almost like a third person, in my head. The relationship itself. I stopped there.
So you're saying that you were totally fascinated about what Pavel was saying, right? About the book he read and the communication, and you were kind of imagined that the relationship itself was like a third person, right?
Yes. And for some reason, the space in between is a verse. It's a line of a poem from an Irish poet, and we get a lot of mileage out of it. What exactly is the space in between? I stop there.
Mm-hmm. So you were talking about like the space in between that is related something about Irish poetry. Is it that right? Yes. You were like wondering where's exactly the space in between.
And yeah, I think what I was, yes, get a partner who will listen to you. I like that. And if you're going to be asking somebody to listen to you, I'm taking it from the angle of you're going to have to know what you want to say. Stop there.
Mm-hmm. So you're addressing like the importance to get a partner who would listen to you, right? And if you have to ask to listen to you, then I didn't get the last part, sorry.
The last part was, then I have to know what I want to say.
Oh, okay, that didn't have to know that you have to say. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I picked that up from what Victoria said. I have to value myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to be able to say, first of all, I have to be able to say, I know how I feel. And put a word on that. If I have somebody listening to me, I would have to say, okay, I feel angry. I feel annoyed. I feel happy. I feel what I feel. I have to be able to put words on that and express them as my position. If I want my partner to get me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you were talking about what I was sharing, right? That I have to value myself and I have to maybe recognize my feelings, right? And put a word in them. I feel angry, I feel happy, I feel disappointed, whatever it is that I feel, and express this feeling as mine. Like these are my feelings, right? So if you really want them to listen to you.
And I think in a way that is a part of my part of the good conversation. If the conversation is to be rich, and it's 99% of the time, and I agree with Bill, and it's 99% of the time, I have to take a stand on what I believe, confidence in myself. Yes, I stop there.
Okay, so you are kind of telling that this is like two parts of the relationship, right? And my part is like to share my feelings, right? You were talking about like the 99% that Bill was saying. Is it like that?
Yes, yes, and I agree with that. Yes, and to grow like in, yeah, that would be my experience in my life. To grow in putting words on how I feel is a serious education. For I found that in romantic relationship, to be able to put words in what I feel is a serious education in itself.
Mhm. Okay, so you are saying that, well, about your experience, that it is quite important about sharing feelings. You are comparing like a really serious education, right? To be able to express and to say what you feel.
Yes, it's an education to put words, to know what I feel and to put words on them.
Mm-hmm. You feel like a total education to understand, to recognize, and to say.
Thank you, Victoria. I feel heard.
Thank you. Oh, I think it's my time again, right? Okay. Well, Pavel, would you listen to me?
Happy to listen, Victoria.
Okay. So, I think that there is a difference between knowing what empathy is and actually apply it. Because in my own experience, even though I heard about it many times, I didn't really know how to do it in like real life. And I'll stop there.
You can see the difference between experiencing empathy and applying empathy.
Yeah, like listening, oh, this is empathy, or you can do that, like actually doing it. And well, then I started to join some empathy circles, and then I started to understand how is this magic work. I'll stop there.
Once you became aware that there is difference and there is that other part, you joined empathy circles and you began to see how the magic happens of applying empathy with others.
Yes, it was like that. I remember then one day I applied with a boyfriend I had, and I did it after a really long time of not expressing my feelings properly. So I told him a lot of things, and he did very well at just listening and reflecting.
You applied back in the days with your old boyfriend um, this empathy process, and you expressed how you felt, something that you were withholding, and he actually took it quite well, reflecting on it.
hmm Yeah, and I started to understand that feelings and emotions sometimes might be crazy, but if they are important for me, so then they deserve to be expressed and to be heard.
It doesn't matter how crazy it might seem about how you feel or what emotions it's in you. If you feel that way, it means it's important. There's something to it.
Yes, because I think that we all have our own perceptions of certain situations, and maybe those perceptions are totally different from my partner's perceptions. But even though these are my perceptions, these are my feelings, maybe it was not like that. Maybe I'm just imagining things, or it's just because of my background that I understand situations this way. But anyway, as long as it's important for me, then I think I should share it, and it needs to be heard.
So, what I'm understanding that we all have different interpretations of what is happening, and even though that our interpretation might be wrong, it's important to express how we feel so we're being understood by the other person.
Yes, just like that. As you say, it might be wrong. Like if an expert comes here, will say, "No, you didn't understand well. I didn't mean that." But anyways, that was my feeling at that time. So that's enough to be important. And it doesn't mean that I'm right. It just means that I need to be heard and express it. That's all.
What I understand you saying is that it's important to communicate that feeling even though that you're wrong. It's a step forward to ensure that there's a mutual understanding.
Yes, just like that. Thank you, Pavel. I feel really hurt.
Bill, would you listen to me, please?
Sure.
Yes, so there's quite a difference, as Victoria said, between empathy and applied empathy. And applied empathy, it's an art in itself.
So you wanted to say there's a difference between empathy and applied empathy. And applied empathy, I get the feeling is more complex and action.
Yes. And also, we cannot speak about family and not speak about the NVC model. There is needs behind what we feel, what we say, and what we do. And we not only should be aware of what our needs are, but what needs the person is trying to communicate to us. The person might be angry with us about something. And if we ask ourselves the question, what needs have not been met that this person is acting in this way? And once we answer that, we not only are being empathic to them, we become more compassionate. So our response changes.
Mm-hmm. So you feel that it's very essential to include the NVC model for looking at things, and that is to look at the needs beneath all of the actions, the anger, the this or the that. And that, so therefore, if you go right to that, don't react or be triggered by the initial, whatever the trigger is, and go to the needs, you then automatically become more empathic. Did I get that right?
Yes, and not only that, by the very act of asking yourself a question, you activate your rational mind. And by activating your rational mind, your prefrontal cortex, you calm down your emotional center, the amygdala. So you cannot respond in an emotional way. You respond in a rational, calm way by just asking yourself that question.
Okay. So then asking your question about what are my needs, what are the needs of the person who's speaking to me, is induces metacognition, to thinking about thinking and how you're thinking, and kicks in your prefrontal cortex, and then essentially you speak more rationally and then more clearly and more empathically, rather than acting out of your emotional state.
Yeah, exactly. And I've noticed my mother, she's very emotional person, highly neurotic. And every time she screams about something, before I used to take a defensive position, but through the process of the empathy circles, I realized that I can actually reflect, not react. And once I start doing this reflection to her, reflect her frustration or anger or whatever it is, she actually just calmed down. Not calmed down, but she didn't say anything. She had nothing to say. Like, it's like she felt understood. So there was no point for her to continue to do that.
So you applied this in your relationship with your mother, who can be very, emotional and volatile. And when you started to then address the needs below that, or just reflect what she was saying, she calmed down. She felt, much more relaxed because she felt was heard. And so she didn't have to get all excited.
And you said it exactly right, to feel heard. So to feel heard, understood, these are needs that are in all of us. And if we satisfy those needs, we cannot but improve the relationship with the other person.
So if you really kind of are aware of our needs and the other person's needs as we are interacting, then we can then more effectively communicate, and that it essentially strengthens the relationship and supports both people. Did I get that right?
I feel fully heard.
Okay. Any corrections?
That's perfect. Thank
Oh,
you.
okay. Okay, sure. Okay. All right. Let's see, Edwin. We haven't gone in a while.
Listening?
Yeah. Yeah, my son is in school, and I just want to kind of talk about what Pavel talked about, which is reflective listening, but metacognition, just sort of, patience. I'll stop there.
Yeah, so you just want to talk about patience, sort of
Yeah,
feel like kind of builds on what Pavel is talking about, just having patience.
right. And it's a way of sort of how kind of feeling things out. My son is in a school program right now, and they are not following COVID protocols. So he feels at risk. I'll stop there.
And just your son's feeling kind of sounds like concerned and at risk because the school isn't using COVID protocols.
Right. And so therefore, that's going to result in that he's going to wait a year and then reapply in the fall, and then hopefully things will be better then. So I'll stop there.
Oh, so he's not going to go. He's just going to wait for a year so that he can reapply later once COVID is
Right.
passed, or
Yeah,
it's
and
safer.
or everybody adapts, mask wearing and social distance and stuff. And so I was sort of, torn. Sometimes he can let little things upset him. And, I'm looking for him to kind of get past that. On the other hand, I'm not there. And he, he's not being irresponsible. He's engaging. He's trying to solve the problem. So there are these two sides of me. I'll stop there.
So I'm hearing there's two sides of you. Sounds like
Yeah.
on one hand, you're concerned about what he's doing by not going to school. On
Right.
the other, sort of a trust in his
Yeah.
decisions.
Right. So, we had a talk, and it wasn't, bad, but essentially there was not a meeting of the minds. And so rather than trying to force something, I just waited. And then he called me back, and then we didn't address the particular issue, but it wasn't as important as he just kind of kept me informed of what he was doing. I'll stop there.
So what I'm hearing there is that you had a discussion about this, and you didn't really kind of see eye to eye
Mhm.
about it, but you kind of just kind of waited and didn't push it. And then he called back, and it sort of sounds like there's more of a connection there.
Yeah, and so riffing off of what Pavel said, it's sort of like I didn't go with my gut instinct. I kind of waited. I kind of trusted both in our relationship and in him, and um, and it's still there's some difficulty, but he really came through, and the communication that when we had that second conversation, I felt much better. And I think he did too.
So you kind of just trusted, you just had trust in the relationship, and you didn't push it. Sounded like there was some kind of differences, but you didn't push it. And then by kind of giving it space, that he did come, and sounds like you had more sort of understanding for each other, kind of.
Yeah,
Maybe
thanks,
kind of,
Edwin.
yeah, okay.
I feel fully heard.
Oh, okay. Speak to Victoria. Yeah, so I guess I just wanted something about the Pavel, talking about the needs in NVC. And for that, I've tried to, needs are in NVC is kind of like there's feelings and there's needs, and they're two different things. And for me, I think that what's sort of missed there is that needs are feelings too. So there's a, you know, you might say, oh, I have a need for connection, but connection is a feeling as well. So I actually like the term sort of feelings that we desire instead of needs, you know, so yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you were addressing what Pavel was saying about, he was talking about the needs, like the needs, the MBC, you see like a difference. You see the needs are feelings too,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're like, well, it's a need, but for example, desire is a feeling too. Is it like
Yeah,
that?
it was, I was going to say that the needs are feelings that we desire. So if there's a feeling like a feeling of connection, like I would like to feel connected versus, you know, disconnected. So the pain of disconnection feels, you know, kind of like, oh, I feel alone, or I feel kind of stressed. And when I have connection, I feel calm and relaxed. And so that's sort of the feeling I would like, is that feeling of connection, feeling calm, feeling understood. Yeah, so I guess I'm just I'm trying to see relationships with feeling as a core important part in.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you were talking about like, well, the needs or feelings, and I understood that you were kind of saying that what kind of feeling do I like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do I like to feel stressed because of this situation, or do I feel calm and relaxed because of this situation? And yeah, I understood that you were trying to address that we, instead of needs, is like the feeling you like. Which feeling do you like,
Yeah.
right? You're talking about feeling is like the core of this.
And the feeling I like is, I like the feeling, I'm saying this because I like the feeling of clarity, you know, when things fit together, when they're clear, and I have sort of a map in my mind, but it has a feeling of cohesion and clear instead of being sort of jagged and, you know, you know, so that's what I'm trying here. The reason I'm saying this about feelings is I like the feeling of clarity, you know, yeah.
You're expressing how you like to feel this clarity, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
this cohesion between everything. Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, because this has kind of come up, is about the quality of feelings. And, you know, there's this notion that there's a reason and emotion. And I think something that also gets missed is there's different kinds of reason or rationality. There's not just one kind, because different forms of reason have different feelings to them. There's sort of a reason of competition, my ideas dominating, battling your ideas, and there's a fight within it. And then what we're doing here with listening to each other is another form of reason. You know, you're listening to me, I'm sharing, I'm sort of unfolding, and I don't feel like a competition. I feel like there's a form of reason based on empathy and connection. So I think this whole, I guess I just don't like this whole, again, for my clarity, this idea of reason and emotion as being two separate things.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you were just saying that you're talking about the quality of feelings,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you're addressing that there is always a different reason for a certain emotion or feeling, right? It's not the same when you are in a competition, in a contest, that you want to win, you want to
Mm-hmm.
fight, or in this difference when you want to listen, you want to be have this empathy, that you really want to see the importance between the difference of the reason and the emotion that leads to. Is it like
Well,
that?
it's that reason is actually a feeling. I think reason is the feeling of reason. I think it's almost like a con game that academics and so for they say reason is over here, feeling is over here, but reason is a feeling, and they just pretend it's something that's not. I think it's a con job. I think it's a lie, actually, a form of a lie, to
Mm-hmm.
give special importance to reason. Yeah, so it's complicated, but that's my.
I understand. So you're feeling like everything, it might be like a circle that is the same, because you can see reason as a feeling too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Yeah.
like, oh, is a feeling too. I understand.
Yeah, and people pretend that they're being it's reason and you're being emotional, so they kind of look down, right? But their condescension is a feeling. Their superiority, feeling of superiority is a feeling, right? So the reason is just totally made up of all kinds of different feelings, and I think that gets kind of gets ignored. So I think it's very foundational just to how, yeah, to have this understanding.
Okay, so you just see it totally as a feeling, right? Like for example, this superiority also is a feeling. Right? Everything is a feeling. You see this like, why it has no sense. Is
Yeah,
it
I
like
feel
that?
heard. There's a lot more. I got a lot more to say, but I feel fully heard. My time's up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Edwin. Oh, is it my turn or Maureen's? Yes, me. Okay.
It's your turn. You're the listener, so you select.
Okay. So, Maureen, could you listen to me?
Yes, you're welcome. Mhm.
Okay. So, I have a few experiences practicing this empathy in relationships. Well, as Bill said, I haven't had that many relationships, but I had a few experiences practicing this in the few I had. I'll stop there.
So you've had a few relationships, and as Bill said, not all that many, but you did practice this empathy on
Mm,
occasions, yes.
yes. Not long ago, I had the opportunity to see an ex-boyfriend. I didn't mean to do it, but just happened. And seeing that we had some time to talk, I told him that we will play a game of sharing and listening. I'll stop there.
So recently you met ex-boyfriends that you meant to, but then you told him that there was some time, let us play a game.
Yes, exactly. So I explained the rules of the game, like he shouldn't interrupt, he should just reflect what I was saying, and I would listen to him too. So I was able to tell him things that really hurt me back then when we were together. And he also shared some deep feelings he never expressed before. I'll stop there.
So you were you said there was going to be reflecting the hearts had
You're
been
really
part of
breaking up,
the
Maureen.
relationship. I know, yes, what
Can
to
you
do.
turn off your video? That might help with bandwidth.
Yes, I was aware that it was breaking up there. Yes, so yeah, that you were able to express to talk about some of the hurts which had been part of the relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and seeing that he was just reflecting and my experiences and my feelings, it was a very fulfilling experience.
And then as he reflected your experiences, in fact, it's a very fulfilling experience.
Yes, and there was a point when he said this phrase like it really hurt you, and that it really hurt you, that was a really special moment for me.
And then when he said the phrase, that really hurt you, and that really hurt you, that certainly was a special moment for you.
Yes, and I think that being heard and understood, as well as being able to listen to his feelings, kind of helped me to heal many things inside.
So then in the process then of listening and being heard did in fact heal many things. It was a healing experience.
Yes, just like that, Maureen. Thank you. I feel really hurt.
Thank you, Victoria. I have, I speak to Pavel. Yes, I hope I'm keeping online now. I speak to Pavel, if that's okay. Thank you.
Up to listen, Maureen.
Yes, I'm struck there by what Victoria said about, I noticed it myself in my life. When some person picks up exactly the emotion, not just the words, but the emotion which is behind the words, I actually cry. I think that's just, yeah, I think that is a recognition of, certainly on my part, of real healing. And it's a moment where I'm not always comfortable with. I recognize what's happening. Someone has exactly said and verbalized the place of hurt, and maybe for me it takes time to heard that. You know?
Froze for a bit, Maureen. I can reflect what I got, or if you can just reflect the last part.
Reflect what you got.
You may want to turn your video off, Maureen, because it was kind of breaking up.
You don't mind.
You kind of saw yourself in Victoria's story, as this has also happened to you when the person saw what's behind your words, and when he reflected on your feelings, you actually cried, and you can see how this acknowledgement, recognition, has a healing effect on oneself. But I'm not sure if I got this right because of the connection, but this thing also may bring discomfort into you. I'm not sure if that's correct.
Yes, it's correct. And maybe I want to continue from exactly where you spoke. Bringing discomfort. I think that, in my experience, is an expression of fear of intimacy. That's what that is. I've recognized it after many years. Do I want to be that close to somebody? Stop there.
Actually, when the person reflects on your feelings, that discomfort that comes up in you, it's actually the fear of being intimate with someone. And
Yes.
you ask yourself the question, do I want to be that intimate with this person?
Yes. I think that's I'm living with that, in fact, with that question. How much intimacy do I really want? Stop there.
This is something that has been going on your mind. How much intimacy do you want?
Yes, thank you. I feel heard.
Thank you, Maureen. Bill, would you listen to me, please?
Sure, happily.
Yes, another very powerful book for me, which I recommend. It's called Fierce Intimacy. It's a really powerful one. I'm not gonna discuss it now, but just recommending it.
Okay. So there was another powerful book, you won't go into details, but it's called Fierce Intimacy and had a great effect on you.
And actually, the way I communicate with my significant other, it's exactly the way we communicate now. We practice empathic listening, and this is actually what made us fall in love, and this is what allowed us to understand each other on a deeper level and connect on a deeper level. We've been communicating like this for 4 months, and we're at the point where we know ourselves so well that you know what the other person will say or how he will react to a certain thing, and then your actions begin to change. You become more conscious of your actions as you know how your partner will respond, and knowing the way your partner will respond causes you to behave in a more appropriate way.
So you're talking about applying empathic listening techniques in your relationship with your significant other, and that has been a great boon to you in developing a relationship and in fostering the love. And so, and you feel that you've achieved through listening to each other, a tremendous amount of knowledge of each other, even to the point where you know how whatever you do would probably affect the other person. And so that creates a sort of, again, a metacognitive feedback loop where it's not just you doing, but it's also me in the context of this relationship. How does that affect it? And that changes your behavior.
Yes. And which strengthens your relationship even further. And while listening to Edwin speak about needs and feelings, so the question becomes, what need hasn't been satisfied in that person? The question changes to what feeling this person is desiring. I don't know if that makes sense, but this is what I got from Edwin, that the feelings are the needs are the feelings that we desire. So what is the feeling that this person desires at that moment? And what can I do to evoke that feeling to help him feel this way?
So you're talking about what Edwin talked about, and you see the connection between needs and feelings. And so therefore, an appropriate question to ask is that, what does my partner, my partner desire, and how can I help them achieve that desire? And then that strengthens the relationship.
Yes. And I also uploaded a document on the chat that I think you might find useful. So when I look at feelings, and then when I look at needs. So the need is, let's say, empowerment, confidence, dignity, effectiveness. So these are needs, choice, freedom, effectiveness. So as what Edwin said is that you can say, I feel effective. The need is effectiveness. I feel effective. I feel competent. I feel empowered. So the need for empowerment becomes the feeling of wanting to feel empowered. It could be a bit messed up, but
Yeah, I get
I'm
it.
trying to make the link.
So you're making the link between the feeling of wanting to be, that's the desire, to feeling wanting to be empowered. And then when you actually demonstrate empowerment, then you sort of internalize that and you don't need to get it outside. And so therefore, if you see your partner as helping you achieve that empowerment, then you're in a cooperative listening relationship rather than an adversarial one. Did I get?
It makes sense what you're saying, and thank you
It's
for
not
that. I wasn't saying this, but
okay.
thank you for the reflection.
Sure, but do you want to correct me? Go ahead.
No. I said it much more simply. You just elaborated it.
Oh, okay. So I was a bit verbose, but I was in the ballpark. Okay, good. Okay. All right. Victoria, would you listen to me? Yeah. We do make distinctions, like for instance, emotions and reason and things like that, and then they also are together. But then there's sort of I don't know, that certain things are more reasonable than others. I'll stop there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're talking about the distinctions we made, right?
Uh,
Between feelings, emotions, but you can
uh,
see them as a whole. They're together, but there
right.
might be certain. Sorry, I didn't get the last.
Um, well, sometimes there's better reasonable things than others. There are like certain reasonable, I don't know what you would call, reasonable whatever equations that work better than other reasonable equations or supposedly reasonable equations.
Okay, so you're just saying that there are some things are that some regional that
Hmm.
some things that are more reasonable than
Right.
others.
You have there's it's necessary, in my experience, it's necessary to reality test. In other words, all the models are fine, but then you go and you act, and then you have to really be, and you try to be as objective as possible about the effect your actions have.
Mm-hmm. So you're trying to say that it is really necessary to be aware of
Hmm.
the actions you do and the impact that they have.
Hmm. Right. Um, and let's see. Okay, well, so like one of the things I thought there was an experience I had that had both a lot of emotion and also I needed to reason. Was a time when I was washed out. I live on the California coast, and I was hiking along the coast, and I was washed out through a cave into this cove. And it was very rough that day. I was afraid of being knocked out and then drowning. So I'll stop there.
Mm-hmm. So you're talking about this experience that had a lot of emotion and where you were talking about that a lot of emotion is the reason, and you are sharing this experience you had when you were hiking. It was a kind of accident. Is it
Yeah,
like
along
that?
the coast. Yeah, yeah. I was just looking at something. It was amazing. I was just looking and I was standing on the beach, and the next thing I know, I was being sucked out through this cave.
Okay, so you were just looking and standing, and you were sucked out to the.
Right. And then I got through it. The waves are crashing against this cliff. I was able to, fend myself off, and I got around to the next bay. And I was like so relieved. I'll stop there.
So you got through it, right? And you feel
Right.
so relieved because of getting through it.
Right. And then when I got out to the bay, there was 100-foot sheer cliff around me, and the tide was coming up, and then the waves were coming in. So I had temporarily saved myself, but it wasn't going to be good. And nobody could see me. So I'll stop there.
So you're talking about the waves were so high, and
Mhm.
you were trying to protect yourself, but at the
Mhm.
same time, nobody could like see you to save you or something.
Right. So I was able to get into a shallower part, but the water was rising. And then right out past the where I had been sucked, thrown in, was a little rocky outcrop. And I knew if I got to that rocky outcrop, then I could jump across and get back to the main beach. I'll stop there.
Okay, so the water was really rising, right? And that
Mhm.
was a really like a little rock aircraft.
Mhm.
Oh, what was the word? Rocky.
The outcrop, just a little like a mini island or something like that.
Okay,
So I
so
knew
you
I could
were
get
trying to
there.
jump.
And the problem was that the waves would periodically wash over it. And so then my emotion, I was very, very scared, and my emotions, so I had to calm myself down. I said, think. And when I started to think, I thought of the book Papillon, and which was a book about a guy who's escaped from Devil's Island. And the way they were able to get away was to understand that there are sets. There are lower waves, and then there are higher waves. So I started to count the waves to find out when the lower waves came, and then I could make it to the outcrop as opposed to the higher waves that would throw me back where I was. I'll stop there.
Okay, so the waves were kind of towards you, and they were like higher and stronger, I imagine. And then you were really scared. But then you thought of how to get out of the situation, and you remember this book of this guy, right? Who went through it, who escaped from maybe a similar situation like this. And then he was saying that there were lower waves and higher waves. So you started to count like how many higher waves, how many lower waves to be pushed back to the place where you were before.
So I did that, and then after a couple of times, but I had to really tamp down my fear. And obviously I'm sitting here, so I made it to the outcrop just in time. The big wave came right up to my chest, and then went down, and then I was able to swim back, and then I'm done.
Okay, so you remember that first of all, you really needed to calm down yourself, right? To be able to calm down all the fear you had. And then at some point you were able to count the waves, and there was a lower wave, and then you were able to get out of there, right?
Right. And so that was sort of managing my emotions in order to effectively deal with the situation. And I had needed the right information and then the right actions. And then I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, so you were just sharing how to manage your emotions to effectively deal with this kind of situations that help you to get out of this. Is it like that?
Yes. Thank you, Victoria. I feel fully heard.
Thank you, Bill. Oh, okay. The circle is going fast again. And well, now, Bill,
Yeah, sure. I'll listen.
would you listen? Okay. Well, I think that it is possible to communicate in a different way in our romantic relationships. However, we need a bit of practice and patience. I'll stop there.
Okay. So you think that there is a more empathic or a more active listening way to interact in a relationship, but we need practice to do it. It's a skill that has to be learned.
Yes, because I think that not everyone is able to put the necessary effort to do this.
Mhm.
I'll stop there.
Sure. So not only is it a skill, but you have to have the desire to learn the skill. Not everyone has that.
Yes. I remember once I was dating this guy who loved giving me advices
Mhm.
and telling me what should I do, what I shouldn't do, like most of the time. He felt like he was kind of protecting me, but it was a bit weird because all he could say, whatever I said, oh, I'm scared, I'm tired. He was always giving me like tones of advices. I'll stop there.
So you're reflecting on a past relationship you had where you were dating a guy and he was constantly, whatever you did on this or that, and he would constantly give you advice, or what we call in this country mansplaining.
Yes. Yes, exactly like that. And a few times I asked him to just reflect my feelings
Mhm.
and experiences, but it was really difficult for him.
Yeah. A couple of times you asked him just to reflect, but it was very difficult for him.
Yes, and once sorry, I kind of got a bit hurt
Mhm.
because I told him something important from my past.
Mhm.
And I explained to him again, like, listen, I just want you to listen, just to reflect. If you want to give me an advice or say something about it, you can say it any other day,
Mhm.
just not today, just not
Mhm.
now. I'll stop there.
So there was a point where you wanted to explain something to this person about your past life. There was an important event in your life, and you just wanted him to basically reflect or but not give you advice. Advice would be okay tomorrow, but not today. You just needed that space.
Yes, exactly. And I kind of got hurt because at first he reflected me.
Hmm.
Then he started saying what I did wrong, what I
Hmm.
shouldn't have done.
Hmm.
And I mean, it was an experience. I can say it was a bad experience because it's okay. But I kind of felt hurt. Like, wow, I told you many times not to say it, but he couldn't help himself. Like
Hmm.
his ego of saying you shouldn't have done this, you did wrong this, and I just took it like, okay, there are some people that really find so difficult to do this, and maybe it's not their time, or I should just go any other way.
So he at first he did reflect, but then he came right in the same day, not waiting the 24 hours, and he started to give you advice. And and you realized that was a limit that he had. He just couldn't not give you advice.
Yes, exactly. I understood that maybe we all have a time to do this, or maybe we need to be really conscious about the impact of this, or we need more awareness. I don't know what is that he needed more, but from that time I was like, no, it's not possible to do this with him. So I just quit that and
Mhm.
that relationship too.
So what you find is that you were wondering what other things might a person like that need in order to be able to just simply reflect and not have to give advice, but you realize that the learning curve for this particular person was too steep and it was time to cut your losses, and you are never going to be heard like you wanted to be heard, and probably, and also in the relationship as well.
Yes, I was probably would never be heard. Thank you, Bill. I feel hella heard.
Okay, so you realize that. Okay, all right. Pavel, would you listen to me? Yeah. Yeah, I think that we do have to go into, I mean, this I'm kind of going off of what Edwin said. We do have to kind of re-examine the relationship between reason and emotion, and seeing it as on more of a sliding scale than a black and white situation. I'll stop there.
We have to see the difference between reason and emotion, and not see it as this black and white scale.
Right, and I think that we also have to look into the scientific processes, because when I was doing my master's degree, there was what I found, which was sort of, was that there was this competition for dominance in this area of science, rather than a genuine, let's look at this. Sorry, that's, I didn't say it well. Do you want me to restate it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So basically, when I was doing my master's thesis, and this guy on Bandura, who was one of the fathers of special education in our country, there were people who were arguing against him, but it wasn't about the content of what he was saying. It was about, like, no, I have a better idea, and it was all these egos, and I don't consider that scientific. Stop there.
I couldn't really put myself into the story to understand it.
Okay, let me try another way. I guess I'm agreeing with Edwin in saying that science is as much subject to their emotions as any other discipline. Let's stop there.
Science is a subject of emotions, and what you're saying is that there is no place for emotions in science. We should be subjective.
I'm not saying there's no place for emotions in science. I think we have to accept the emotions and look at them, and that's what I talk about when, different things of reason. Like, for instance, at one point, an administration scientifically characterized ketchup as a vegetable in school lunches. I'll stop there.
It's not that there is no need. We should accept the emotions. And then you tell this funny story that this guy labeled ketchup as a vegetable or something.
Yeah, and technically that's correct, but it doesn't really, the intent of the school lunch guidelines was to give kids healthy lunches. And so this was a way to say, yes, ketchup is a vegetable, but are you getting the sort of minerals and nutrients that you need from a good, healthy, varied vegetables? No, you're not. So that's where science, I feel, is distorted.
It was misinterpretation of the data, and while let's say a ketchup may come from a vegetable,
Mm.
it's something so heavily processed that it lacks the nutrients that the real vegetable would give you.
Right. Thank you, Pavel. I feel fully heard.
Thank you, Bill. Edwin, would you listen to me, please?
Yep, listening.
Yeah, I mean, like Bill said that he felt fully hurt, or I mean, like, or it was a time, but maybe I don't think he felt fully understood. I don't know. Is something that I noticed when I listen, and this is what I got from Bill in the beginning of the empathy circles when I asked him, "How do you reflect?" Because it was so hard for me. I listen to understand. I'm not listening to reflect. I listen to understand. I really want to see what it's like from your side. And then I shouldn't worry about my reflection. Once I see it from your perspective, then I would reflect in a easy way. But if I cannot put myself into your story, and if I don't understand, I find it hard to reflect.
So you're really, I'm hearing you're trying to see how you can reflect better and the way you want to do that is when you listen, you want to really grasp what the other person is saying and then be able to share that, not just give a sort of a superficial reflection. And I'm hearing that maybe you had a bit of struggle really grasping what Bill was saying. And then he was telling you that he did feel heard. And I'm hearing a little bit of skepticism if he really did feel heard.
Yes, and what I'm saying is that it's not about reflecting. It's not about reflecting on the other person feelings and thoughts and so on. It's about you actually understanding them. It's both, actually. You have to show that you understood them, and you have to also understand them. It not only show it, because if you reflect, you may show that you understood, or that's what they might think, but did you actually understood it? So you have to aim to understand and then show your understanding.
So you're really seeing that it's really about understanding at a deep level, maybe really understanding the meaning that they're saying. It's just not saying sort of superficial words that you want to sort of deeply understand and then be able to reflect that understanding at a deeper level. So maybe you're wanting like deeper connection or deeper understanding.
Yes, and this is where listening with curiosity comes in. You're actually curious. You really want to know. And often when I end on my reflection, I would ask, did I get that right? It's not to ensure that I got them right, like for them. It's ensuring that I got it right for myself.
So you're really trying to make it that when you reflect and you ask if you were understood, is it for them or it's really just to sort of satisfy your feeling of curiosity? You want to, because you really want to have that understanding and you have that curiosity if you really got it right.
Yes. And I think that's where empathy really it's at. It's not on conveying or it's not on the reflection itself, but on you understanding it.
Well, it sounds like you want a deeper feeling of understanding, not just being superficial, and you really want to kind of go deeper in in the understanding, in the reflection, and sort of, yeah, really how to have a deeper, I don't know if it's connection or something.
Yeah, and if I keep going, I will be just paraphrasing the same thing. So I feel fully heard. Thank you, Edwin.
Yeah, so you're just really, yeah, you're just sort of repeating yourself, you feel. Yeah, but there's really something about wanting to go deeper. Okay, speak to Maureen then.
Okay, Edwin.
Yeah, so trying to bring it to the empathy in the family and relationships. What I've been looking at is how to have sort of an agreement to have an empathic relationship. I thought it was interesting. Victoria was kind of like, it's that challenge of how do you get people into it at first, you know, and they're kind of skeptical of it. It's something different. And you can say, oh, this is just a game. Let's try this game, you know. So how do you sort of bridge that? Because there is this resistance that I feel.
Yes, so you like to bring it empathy into this kind of an agreement, as it were, in a relationship to and then people are definitely a bit shy of it and fearful of it and not so sure. And then what Victoria brought about the idea of it being a game, that touched a chord with you somewhere.
Yeah, and I had, you know, on that list of different topics that I have in the Google Doc, one of them is what is our task for the week? And that's to try to hold an empathy circle in our family and then, or relationship, and then report back on how it went. And Victoria's been doing that a lot, you know, so appreciate her really sharing all those stories.
Yes, so you would, looking at what you put on the chart there as well as a list and the task or in, yes, yeah, there's a task on it. And the task would be then to try it out during the week and report back on it, as Victoria has been doing in the stories that she's been telling.
Yeah, and so it's the thing I'm looking at is how, like, can we have a relationship, sort of an agreement that we want a empathic relationship and agreement, have an agreement with our partners or in our families, and how can we kind of create that agreement? You know, it's almost like a constitution, right? That you have sort of a shared agreement. So just thinking about how to like write that up or how to create that.
Yes, so you're thinking then about having a kind of an agreement in the family, that shared empathy would be like a process. How do you highlight it? Maybe a constitution around it?
Yeah, I don't know if the constitution agreement, that I'm looking for the right word, you know, it's just like a family agreement or something like that, you know, so I'm kind of wanting to experiment with that. So I'm going to talk to my partner about it. She's right over there. A family agreement.
You're looking for the right word then. And maybe a family agreement, but you're going to talk to your partner about it.
Yeah. We kind of argue over the empathy, doing empathy circles, you know. That her thing is let's just talk. We don't need to do empathic listening, but when she talks, I don't feel heard. See, and then she said, "That's because of your mother. It's not my fault." Because my mother, you can talk about anything. It's like she never stops talking. She's one of these people, you can't get a word in edgewise, you know. So I'm very sensitive to that when people don't listen. Yeah.
Yes. So with your partner there is some reluctance to settling in for an agreement. Why not let us talk? Just talk. But then you find when it's just talk, you don't feel heard. And yet you say, I don't feel heard. And then she says, well, that's because of your brother. He never stops talking.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's my project for the week. I hope to report back on that agreement. So yeah.
So now you have a project for the week and you're going to report back on the agreement.
Ask the group how they feel about having empathy circles
Just like-
24 hours a day.
Oh, and then she's saying in the background, well, I'd like to ask the group, how do they feel about having empathy circles 24 hours of the day,
7 days a week.
7 days a week? So she's kind of feeling frustrated about that.
She wants to ask the group here how we feel about somebody having, she's having them 24 hours a day. How we feel about that if we had them 24 hours a day.
Yeah, so she's kind of saying, oh, you have too many empathy circles. So yeah, so you can see there's some kind of a tension there.
So then there's the tension residing there in the fact that you having too many
Yeah,
empathy circles in her mind. Mhm.
Yeah, I feel heard. Thanks.
I talked to Bill, if you
Happily listening.
yes. Well, now, Edwin, I certainly would be like your partner there. I wouldn't be structuring my family life really around empathy circles. I wouldn't. That's how I'd be. Yes. Mhm. Oh, somebody mentioned when you're listening to a story, being curious. That struck a chord with me because as I was listening there to the stories from Victoria, I really felt myself being carried along and interested and curious, really interested, and resonating with them. Stop there.
Okay. So the first thing you also felt, along with Edwin's significant other, that it would be very difficult to have empathy circles 24 hours a day. But then you were talking about the stories, and there were some stories and also the concept somebody had mentioned about being curious. And so, and then that led you to talk about Victoria's, the things that Victoria shared.
Yes, I think story, it sort of speaks for itself in a way. It takes you get into stories. And we started talking earlier on about Carl Rogers, is it Rogers?
Mhm.
And his approach to getting us to speak and listen, to being heard.
Mhm.
And it resonated with me, having lived in a culture where stories, everything was expressed. They didn't know, and they weren't involved in the Carl Rogers processes. Never heard of him,
Mhm.
one myself very often. But they were telling stories, and the level of listening was amazing in my observation.
Mhm. So you were talking about and contrasting with how people do teach each other and share through the telling of stories. And there's another thing, like the conceptual framework of Carl Rogers and the techniques that he might use. But before that came around, people were telling stories, and that got quite a lot done.
Yes. And I was amazed watching and being part of that community. It could be the same story many times, but the audience were always captivated by the story. That audience. No, I wasn't, but that audience was. And stop there.
Sure. So you were that even though the story might be repeated many times, there were people who really just loved to hear it each time. That you were not one of them, but it did affect you the way that people would hear the same story again and then, pay attention.
So I'm wondering if I could, as my project, have a story for my partner. See how it is heard, and then maybe bring it in that sense. Yes.
So you think,
Yes. Mhm.
okay. So you're thinking about using stories as a way of kind of like an entryway to empathic listening, in the sense of just, asking for a story, which would not require any conceptual things or accepting this or that, but just telling a simple story and then reflecting on it in an empathic way.
Might work in my situation,
Okay.
because sometimes when I tell my stories, they're not heard fully.
Okay. So it may not work that way. It may not lead to empathy or deeper communication, because sometimes when you tell your stories, they're just not heard fully.
And then maybe if I introduce the idea of the empathy circle, they might be heard. You never know.
But if you introduce the idea of the empathy circle along with the story, maybe there would be more effective communication.
Yes, it might help. Yes. Yes. I was, when Bill was talking about his experience in a cave and trying to calm down the fear and looking at waves coming in, the smaller wave and the bigger wave, like the kind of concentration that took was admirable. And I was relating it to myself, because one of the things that anybody living with me will observe, when I get really angry, I do not act in an empathetic way. I don't. And anger is very important emotion in relationships, that really important. Important feeling. Anger is a very important feeling. So I'm just wondering that maybe next time when I'm super angry, I might think of that story and say, as I see those waves coming towards me, maybe I could calm down before expressing my anger in front of another person. And stop there.
So you were making a parallel between the story I told about having to calm my fear and emotions down and count waves in the midst of a lot of stress, and with this time in relating to you in when you're really angry, and especially when you get super angry, that sort of pause and wait and evaluate might help you then communicate in a more effective way.
Yes. And I always think of anger as a very strong emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody asked me many years ago, what makes you angry? And I said, I don't get angry. That was my response. Well,
so you think that anger is a very strong emotion, and that years ago somebody said, what do you do when you get angry, or how are you when you get angry? And you said, I don't get angry.
so that's what I brought, I think, from my culture of family.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm aware, I was made aware that I do get angry. And now my challenge is how to express it appropriately.
Okay. So then your enlightenment was the fact that, no, indeed, you do get angry. And now the process is how to express it more appropriately.
Thank you, Bill. I feel heard.
Okay. All right. Let's see, Edwin, how we're about 15 minutes. What?
Yeah, we have another, maybe one more. If you want to go, we could.
Yeah, I feel like I've gone a lot. I feel very heard today. And I'd be willing to pass to someone who has something to say.
Well, we could just wrap up then. We have
Okay.
about 12 minutes left, so kind of just open it up. So how was that? And any projects for the week you want to do with your family? Any ideas for projects? I'm going to try to get this agreement with my partner. Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah, Victoria, it looks like you had some ideas.
Oh, Pavel was about to
Oh, were you,
say something.
Pavel? Do you have something?
Honestly, I am afraid to bring empathy circles into my family. I am thinking that people will express things that have been buried. While it's good to express them, it will trigger something worse afterwards. So if we all express what we have in us, it will bring a huge cacophony.
Explosion. Yeah. So you're really
Explosion.
concerned that there's all these things that have been swept under the rug. You bring an empathy circle on all this Pandora's box of feelings and stuff. So you're really afraid there of kind of bringing an empathy circle to the one idea for that is to try it on a positive topic. Say, can we just have a short empathy circle on what was something that happened that was really good in your week, to really share a positive story, and just do a kind of a short round around that, so that it's a very positive experience. And then you can kind of end it, and yeah. So yeah.
That's a very good
yeah.
advice.
So we're looking forward to the report back on that.
Yeah. I personally had that experience when we first had our first circle circle of empathy in the family. Yeah, it was a bit awkward, and most of the people didn't want to talk. So that's why my mom started with positive things like, okay, what was a nice experience you had with this person, or a good thing that happened. And after a few times of doing about a good thing, then she started to introduce the topic of a bad thing. So by that time we feel like kind of more relaxed and not afraid, oh my god, he's gonna listen to what I have to say. And then eventually I think that it will be like normal to talk about positive and negative situations with someone in your family. Well, that's my experience, I guess.
Yeah, that's a great, yeah. She was very clever to start off with those positive stories. Yeah. Maureen or Bill, any thoughts for the week?
Sure. Well, I don't have plan to do any formal circle, but I plan to, like, again, just be aware of it. Like in the story I told about my son, just try to experience patience, reflection, and try to hit that sweet spot between, where emotions and reason kind of come together and, create community and warmth and effectiveness.
Maureen?
Yes, I would say maybe I wouldn't introduce at all formally or systematically or anything an idea of an empathy circle. Being aware of it is good, and then maybe as I move along, if I see a moment or a story which could be offered in that way, I could do it. Just as if it were kind of something in passing, not something that I had planned for years.
Mm-hmm. So kind of in a moment, you want to be able to kind of gather some stories from family members. Is that what you're saying?
No,
spontaneously?
No, not that.
Oh.
As I generally can communicate with people around me, with persons around me, that I'm aware of what empathy circle is. And when I see an occasion just spontaneously arising, maybe somebody tells something very, very interesting. Oh, that's a great story.
Oh.
Would you like me now to play back to you what I think you what I think you said? In that kind of context, particularly if it's a good story, as Victoria said, somebody's telling a nice story and they're kind of all enthusiastic about it. And maybe I'm only half listening, but I'm listening. And then I say, well, now this might be the occasion for me to say, would you like me now to let you know what I heard? See how it goes like that, you know.
Mm-hmm. So it's more like in the moment when someone shares something that you would ask them if they would want to get it, have a reflection. The one thing, just thinking about that, you may want to do is say, would you mind if I reflected back what I'm hearing so that I can sort of take it in better or something, so that it doesn't put it on them, but it kind of just says, oh, you're kind of like helping me out by letting me reflect it. So that's kind of another approach too. Well, something I might try is with my sister-in-law, we had a Zoom call with Joan and my sister-in-law and I, and we just shared positive stories, like, what was the positive? So with relatives to just say, oh, can we have this time? Everybody gets 5 minutes to share. So I think I might try that too. Just haven't talked because of COVID, we haven't gotten together. So I think I'm gonna reach out and ask her if she wants to, or maybe some of the other family members have a little just positive stories. What was something that was good? Because the last time we did it, it just was very nice because, sometimes there's a lot of contention between some of our family members, and just having some time to share a positive story, it was kind of half an hour or something. It just created a nice atmosphere. So that's my task. So, okay, so we've got, we're going to same topic next week. You can report back, any stories that happened during the week or any new ideas. And in half an hour, we have the facilitator support group. And I was going to use that time, I had publicized it for talking about how do we bring Congress members in the United States together. My Congress member has a man here, is for a bill in my district. He said he would take part in January in an empathy circle with other He's Democrat, he would take part in a Republican empathy circle with them in an empathy circle. And the topic would be, how might we bridge the political divide? So just trying to get a team together to kind of set that up and see if there's other people who would like to help support that, or maybe reach out to their Congress members. You could, try it with your representatives, of parliament, or, whatever government you have. So kind of seeing how we can kind of create that. So that's going to be one of the topics for that circle, for that discussion in half an hour. So, okay, well, with that, thank you for, I really enjoy this topic and sharing all your personal stories, and real delight, and look forward to seeing you next week too.
Adrian, next Tuesday is going to start the next facilitator training course.
Wednesday.
Is it like that? Wednesday, right? Oh, okay. Can anyone take part?
Oh yeah, it's going to be at 3 p.m. Pacific time. So, did you want to take part in that?
Yeah, I would like to.
That'd be great. Let me bring up the it's gonna bring up the not the application, the form. Where we go, I have it here.
Or maybe I can send you a message in Messenger so you can send it.
Yeah, I'll just send. I got it right here. This is the form. And if you go there, you can see there's you go through, there's an application, there's some links, and yeah, we have 3 spots left. It's going to be, I think it's going to be a really nice group. It's going to be, it's set up for US to Australia time, and there's some Australians taking part.
Okay.
So are you able to open that, or?
I don't see it.
Oh, it's sorry, that's I put it in the wrong, send it to the waiting room and everyone. There we go.
Oh, okay.
Write it in there. So you can just add your
Cohort 7, Empathy Circle Facilitation Training.
Yeah, number 18. And if you just add your email, I just put your name in there. If you add your, and then fill out the application. Yeah, it'd be great to have you take part. Yeah, really excited.
Okay, yes. Should I write there?
Yeah, you can write there at 18, just number 18, just add your email and
Number 18. Oh, okay. Yeah, I
just
can
scroll
see it.
down, you'll see, yeah, there you are, see you there now, yay. And then later, just fill out the application and so we have a record of that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be it's gonna be like 20 people in that cohort, so it's gonna be the largest cohort, but really interesting people, so
Mhm.
should be really fun.
Okay, I wrote it. Should I do something? I really don't know how to use this kind of documents.
Yeah, just the, if you scroll up, you'll see steps to take part. It says fill out the training application. So if you click on that, it takes you to a Google form, just fill out the
Okay,
details.
okay.
And that's all there is, and just come when that's on Wednesday, next Wednesday.
Okay,
Great, yeah.
perfect. I'll
Good.
do that.
So, okay, well then, see you then. And
Okay,
okay, bye everyone.
Bye bye, everyone.
goodbye.